Hello, this is astrologynewsreport.com with your hosts David Anton Savage and Ron Berger.
Okay, we go to our third segment of this week's report, People in the News, where we will analyze the Vedic astrology chart of a newsworthy person.
For this week's person in the news, we have chosen to dissect the chart of Bashar Al Assad, the president of war-torn Syria, who apparently had a close call last week as it was claimed that rebel forces were successful in hitting his motorcade with a mortar round.
Besides the fact that we are all anxious to know how much longer is this guy going to last, what, David, made you focus on him?
Well, right off the bat, the bare facts of his life show that history has given him a very strange and unlikely destiny. He was never supposed to be the president in the first place. He wasn't even in the picture. His older, more charismatic brother was always going to be the one. No question about it. He is sort of the poster boy for larger forces taking charge of one's destiny.
All right. Well, let's jump in here with a chart we believe to be accurate based on what we know about him and the timeline of events in his life. Although his date of birth and his birthplace are known, there is no published birth time for Bashar al-Assad, so you and I had to do a rectification.
We came up with the time just after 6 p.m. in the evening of September 11th, 1965 in Damascus, Syria.
Okay, so tell us, David, what sort of major events in his life show us how this chart might work.
Yeah, I was pretty struck by this. Get this set up here. He was trained as an ophthalmologist in Syria. He left Syria in 1992 to do his postgraduate work at the Western Eye Hospital in central London. Then in 1994, his older brother Basil dies in a car crash on January 21st of that year, whereupon he is summoned to return to Syria by his tyrant father, Hafez al-Assad. He gets married in 2000. His wife is quite successful in her own right, had her own career as an investment banker. His father subsequently dies on June 10th of 2000, and 10 days later, Bashar is elected president for a 7-year term. His first of 3 children is born on December of 2001. In mid-December of 2009, his younger brother Maj dies of a long-term illness, the nature of which is not disclosed. On July 18th of 2012, a huge explosion in Damascus kills Bashar's brother-in-law, and his younger brother Meir is severely injured in the blast, losing a leg and possible use of his left arm.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty tough on his relatives. Anyway, here's some interesting qualities about him that are shown in his natal chart. He has Saturn, the ruler of the ascendant, in the ascendant, and retrograde. So the significations of Saturn are especially strong in his life. Saturn is the planet of karma that you can't get out of. Saturn is nearly exactly aspected by Uranus, the planet of sudden, unexpected events.
Also, see that his 9th house, the house of destiny, is especially strong with both its own ruler Venus and Mars, the ruler of the 10th house of status and position, are here together forming a Raj Yoga, indicating some good fortune and destiny in his life. Note that he was in his Mars sub-period of his Mercury major period when his brother died and his father called him back to Syria, which changed his destiny. Mars is the planet of brothers. Mars is the ruler of his 10th house of status and position, and Mars is in his 9th house of father and destiny.
Yeah, and all those dramatic events that happened for him in the year 2000, getting married, his father dying, becoming president of Syria, even the birth of his first child the next year, all that happened in his Mercury major period and Saturn sub-period. There's Mercury, the ruler of the 8th house of big changes, plus Saturn, the ruler of the 1st house, representing himself, And the two planets are mutually aspecting each other in the birth chart as well.
What's going on with his siblings? All his brothers, regardless of whether they were older or younger, have all been either killed, died, or maimed. Even his only sister did not escape a measure of tragedy, with the death of her husband in that Damascus bomb blast of 2000. Being Bashar's brother or brother-in-law has not been a lucky affair, to say the least.
Yeah, well, it does sound pretty fated. And the third house is the house of siblings and close relatives in general. And in his chart, it is receiving the special third house aspect of a very strong Saturn from its position in his first house. Now, Saturn, for Aquarius rising, is also the ruler of the 12th house of loss and separation, where its other sign, Capricorn, is. And we could say that the planet of karma, Saturn, is favoring Bashar by being the ruler of the first in the first, but that same Saturn is not doing any favors for his relatives.
Also, Mars, the ruler of the third house, is close to Neptune, making for some strange and mysterious circumstances for those relatives.
Right. Okay, so how about the question we have all been wondering about?
Yes, the question is, how much staying power does he have? This brutal civil war has been underway for 2 years now, and it was looking bad for the regime for a while. Pundits and experts have been confounded by how long he has lasted. And and there have been some we're sort of in a spotty sort of stalemate right at this time. So, what does the astrology predict?
Okay, well, first we have to say that Saturn is the planet of longevity, amongst its other significations. And here it is, the ruler of his chart, and it's very powerful in its own sign. And when Saturn is retrograde, it gets even more endurance. So this makes him, strong right away in terms of lasting power. His ascendant is also picking up a benefic trine aspect from Jupiter, the planet of protection and confidence, which is over there in his fifth house. And furthermore, again, that Raj Yoga of Mars and Venus, powerful in his ninth house of good luck. And that's also helping to keep him alive. But anyway, what does his Dasha sequence tell us?
Well, he is currently in his Venus major period, which began in 2009. Venus rules both his fourth house of home and soul and his ninth house of destiny and good luck.
Yeah, and Venus major period activates that Mars Raj Yoga in his ninth house.
And if we are right about the birth time, he is in his Sun sub-period this year. Sun is also the planet of kingship and the ruler of his seventh house of one-on-one relationships, including the direct enemy. The Sun is exceptionally strong in his chart. Both Venus, the major period ruler, and Sun, the sub-period ruler, are in their own signs and represent powerful parts of his chart.
So he gets some strong good karma, good luck, by having his powerful ninth house turned on. And as well, he gets a powerful opponent by having his seventh house turned on. The Sun represents this powerful opponent, and it is directly opposite to him, represented by his Saturn, the ruler of the first in the first. It's a pretty tough combination. All right, well, what do the transiting planets tell us?
Well, Saturn is transiting his ninth house with Rahu, so he is definitely primed for a reality check along with some transformation of his destiny. And yet, Jupiter's transit in Gemini is giving a boost to his fifth house, as well as sending its beneficial trinal aspect to his first and ninth houses. But look at Neptune, it is transiting his ascendant. That makes him less than realistic.
Yeah, and what about Mars? I mean, Mars is the planet of destruction and violence, and clearly he has to fear the planet Mars.
Well, now, Mars is going into Cancer in his sixth house, so that is certainly problematic for him. Could be he meets with an accident, and after that, when Mars goes into Leo in October, he'll have the planet of violence giving more power to the opponent, as well as directly aspecting his ascendant.
Well, David, we have often talked about the concept of circumstantial karma, and when you are the ruler of a Middle Eastern nation at this time in history, you're certainly surrounded by some heavy-duty circumstances.
Yeah, meaning whatever good fortune Assad has in his birth chart, there are still larger forces that will ultimately determine his fate, because his fate is also now tied to the nation of Syria.
Yeah. And with that, we will leave Mr. Assad to his destiny.
Until next week, then.
Until then.